it's really what this all is based on, is how do we be competitive, especially in economic development, against some of the cities that had such a head start on us. So we took a look at the landscape and said, and these are some of the things we were seeing. So Dallas jumped out ahead and launched the Dallas Innovation Alliance with then President Barack Obama to drive smart city efforts in Dallas. We saw San Diego partner with GE and launch the largest IoT rollout with their streetlights, although they're having some issues with that now. My friend Bob Bennett, who's the CIO of Kansas City, transformed, I think, 5 square blocks in their downtown into a completely connected corridor, which has really made news at the time. LA partnered with U.S.D. to launch the IoT consortium, and then this is the kind of one that really got to me, especially because I played soccer at Ohio State for a little bit. And so Columbus, Ohio, we saw what they were able to do, turning a $40 million DOT Smart City grant through collaboration with industry into a $140 million project. Now, they really struggled to get anything up and off the ground, and it's really become known as a failure for smart cities. And so we really started to think, okay, one, how can we start to compete with all these other cities that have such a big head start on us, but also how can we not become the Columbus? How can we allow investment to really accelerate in our cities and not have a kind of massive failure like Columbus experienced, where they won all this money and they have yet, I think it's 4 or 5 years, to do anything with it. And so we've created this Smart Region Consortium around some of these difficulties. And so we started to think to ourselves, okay, how are we going to compete with all those other cities? And what we realized, talking with leaders from the cities, Chris Camacho, and kind of the governor's office, and what we realized is that our competitive advantage is who we are. We're the 4th largest county, fastest growing in population. We have the #1 largest public research institution, #1 largest community college system here. We have 22 jurisdictions all slammed up right next to each other in this greater Phoenix region. What if we could get those 22 jurisdictions to think together, act together, innovate together, and procure technology and infrastructure together? Could we create a smart region and outscale everyone else that's focused specifically at city level? And so that was the impetus behind the Greater Phoenix Smart Region Consortium, is to drive this vision of creating America's first smart region. And so the Smart Region Consortium, it's a collaborative applied research implementation partnership between ASU, MAG, IDP, GPEC, and the 22 communities in the Greater Phoenix region. And what we really want to drill down here is the fact that this is a do take. We're here to provide the mechanism to really launch projects. And so I just wanted to kind of run over the governance model of the consortium, just so you can all understand kind of who's running it and who's participating in it. So as I mentioned, the 4 kind of executive team members are GPEC, ASU, MAG, and IDP, my nonprofit. And the whole goal here is to go from identification of challenges to RFPs, but RFPs at scales. Now, so there'll be one group that helps run the consortium. That's called the Leadership Council. That's 22 seats for all of our community members, cities and towns in the county. And then there's the Industry Advisory Council. That Industry Advisory Council will help drive the thought leadership and technical expertise of where our region goes when it comes to this emerging technology. And so the vision here, and what I really want to point out, is the fact that we're really trying to transform our region into a global leader in this public sector governance. How can we provide the resource and the tools to our governments, especially our local governments, to allow them to accelerate the adoption and implementation of these technologies into our communities? So we're here to be a tool and a resource for our cities and our government partners. So that way we can better help industry get your products into our cities and create a positive change in our urban environments. We want to make life better for our residents, visitors, and citizens through technology, and it's going to take an unprecedented amount of collaboration to do so. But we think we've built a governance model to do that. And just a little bit maybe possibly belabor the point of, this is a do tank. We're creating a first of its kind technology and innovation do tank right here in the Greater Phoenix region. So again, our focus is on identify urban challenges, identify the outcomes we want, and then find those solutions that meet those outcomes and address our challenges, and let's get them out there, let's test them, let's prove them, and let's scale them. And so, as I mentioned, this is kind of more focused towards industry, because I knew we would have a lot of industry partners in the room. So what you're about to see is kind of the benefits for industry from the Greater Phoenix Smart Region Consortium. So first of all, partnership. What we're trying to do is drive a deeper level of relationship between industry, government, and the university. So we have an unprecedented level of scale here in the Greater Phoenix region. As I mentioned, some of those numbers earlier, largest public research institution, largest community college system. Our goal here is to better align the technology and innovation strategies for all partners, get them connected so that way we can share resources, share knowledge, and really accelerate the development of our region and our cities into smart cities. And so what we're going to do through the consortium is meet on a regular basis. You're probably really used to this as sitting in organizations such as the Chamber, but what we're really focused on doing is bringing those communities together to share knowledge and input on the projects, the smart city related projects that they're working on. So the main goal here is the example of San Diego. What we don't want to happen is what San Diego did. San Diego partnered with GE, launched that massive IoT rollout with their streetlights, and they just worked internally without speaking to anyone. And all of a sudden, they launched the project, got it out on the street, and all of a sudden, the city received a $2 million network backhaul bill, right? And no one during that process asked about the network backhaul, right? And so it's become a major failure from the city of San Diego's perspective. And so our goal is through this consortium is to bring the cities together so that way, if one city's working on a project, they can speak to each other. They can ask, hey, has anyone else gone through this project? What should we be asking? What should we be thinking about? So that way our cities don't experience that sort of failure. So the goal is to get the cities together on a more regular basis, talking about innovation, talking about technology. Also, we want our key industry partners to be in those conversations so that way they can understand kind of the technology innovation roadmaps where our cities and our region are going. So again, the whole goal here is to build a deeper, more profound relationship between our cities, our industry partners, and the university itself. So engagement, access, and thought leadership is one of the biggest benefits I think the consortium could provide for you as industry partners through the Greater Phoenix Smart Region. This goes to the point about the City of Columbus. So we've actually spent a lot of time and a lot of hours of developing an actual workflow for how projects will come and be evaluated and deployed in the smart region. So the goal here is there is a lot of money, especially at the federal government level, that the federal government is looking to invest in communities to drive the research and development of these emerging technologies. However, they're looking for regions, for cities that can prove that they can take that money and do something with it, right? And a lot of times, it's the cities, the towns, the regions that are known for getting stuff done that receive this money. So what we're trying to do is make sure we have the process in place so that way if we do receive $140 million, we have a dedicated workflow and process stream that will allow us to take that money and actually put it to good use and prove to the federal government, prove to industry partners that you should come here to invest your R&D money and invest your investment dollars. So again, a dedicated, detailed process for how projects will get up and off the ground. So again, that do tank mentality. It's also a resource for our cities, forgot to mention, so that way if the city of Chandler is looking at a project, they can actually push their project through the consortium and get access to expertise, advice, thought leadership on how they should execute that project and potentially partner with maybe other cities that are looking at that project in order to achieve economies of scale and purchasing power. And then this is another, I think, big key benefit of the industry partners to the Greater Phoenix Smart Region Consortium is what we're trying to do is establish a network of living labs throughout the region. These are physical areas of the city where industry, entrepreneurs, the university, even the city of itself can test emerging technologies that could potentially have a beneficial impact on city services or maybe our quality of life, the urban environment, will allow you to test, prove, and scale that technology in these living labs. So these living labs are nothing new. A lot of the cities across the country have these. However, what makes us unique, what our competitive advantage is again, the scale. So think about it, Dallas, City of Dallas. They have a living lab in, I think, the west end of their city. You can only test so much technology in 5 square blocks of your city, right? And so what we're seeing is a lot of companies, a lot of industry lining up to gain access into that living lab in the city of Dallas. Well, what makes us unique is through the Greater Phoenix Smart Region Consortium, we could potentially have 22 different living labs, 22 innovation sandboxes for industry to come and prove their technologies here, right? And so what we believe, this is going to become the proving grounds that will help industry accelerate technology to market. And so it's going to be a big competitive advantage, especially with economic development for us. It's also a place that's going to inspire entrepreneurs, right? More and more we're seeing these entrepreneurs, especially in these co-working spaces, developing these technologies, but they need to prove the business model in a living area. So if you're an entrepreneur that developed a trash sensor that can sit in a trash can and maybe improve the way municipal government collects waste, well, we're going to allow you to potentially test that technology in one of our living labs, prove it, and then hopefully there's cities here that can then purchase that technology and offer an opportunity to be your first customer. So this access to this living lab, this innovation sandbox, is going to be a big benefit. And as you can see, I put some numbers down, especially in the automated vehicle industry, because I know that's very prevalent in the city of Chandler. And so just the automated vehicle industry alone is expected to hit, I think, $557 billion by 2026. So big numbers in these smart city spaces. So again, it becomes a roadmap, a living lab to where technology can be produced and commercialized. So again, the process is going to allow us to go from idea to solution design to prototype to test to commercial product. So again, trying to create businesses and companies. Now what's really exciting about this, from talking to a lot of our large industry partners, is what this has become is a venture incubator for industry, right? Because what we're doing through the consortium is we're aggregating the demand. So we're aggregating the cities, the university, the community colleges, right? And we're pushing detailed, curated challenges through a pipeline that will eventually hopefully turn into businesses, right? And so if you think about it, a city has a challenge, they push it out, maybe a new solution is designed, it's produced, it's tested in a living lab, it's proved, and then the cities, because they're the ones that push the demand out, then purchase it. So it becomes a full cycle of business development. And what's exciting is those industry partners are actually looking at this as a curated pipeline for their M&A activity, right? They're going to be looking at the companies that come out of this funnel and say, is that a target for us to acquire? And so we're actually starting to attract more and more technology venture funds into the region like we've never seen before, with the hopes that they will now have a curated pipeline of investment opportunities. Also, as I mentioned before, R&D. We want to create a proving grounds where companies come and test their R&D. So just in the automated industry alone, it's expected that corporations will spend $61 billion in R&D by 2023. We want that R&D here. I mean, it's already prevalent in the city of Chandler. How do we get more? Right? And we think we have the process, the do tank to do just that. Capacity building. So again, as I mentioned, this consortium was built by cities for cities. We want this to be a tool and a resource to help our cities drive this technology adoption. So a lot of the resources of the consortium are going to go towards helping our cities out. So one of the programs, or one of the portions of the Smart Region Consortium, is our public sector workforce development programs. These programs are designed to upskill our current public sector workforce. I mean, we've got terrific talent and terrific leaders within our organizations, our city organizations, but unfortunately a lot of them are so burdened by the day-to-day operations, they don't have time to keep up with the change and the pace of this technology evolution, right? And so, maybe the street engineer that's been there for 25, 30 years doesn't understand AI or doesn't understand the latest of IoT technology. These programs are developed to help bring them up to speed with the latest technologies and enhance their knowledge capacity of emerging technologies so they feel more comfortable and more confident with these technologies. Because when you feel more comfortable and confident, you're more accepting of these technologies, you're more willing to engage with industry, and you're more willing to take a chance of piloting the technology within your city. So we really want to try to upskill our current public sector workforce and provide them with these resources to become better professionals at what they do. And we actually ran a pilot program. I think James Smith, former City of Chandler, participated in the first academy program there. But you see a lot of the CIOs from across the region, and even the state CIO that participated in the first program. And you can see some of the drawings that came out of it. So it's very interactive, very engaging. And what's best about this is we just announced, I think last week, that we formally partnered with Thunderbird Global School of Management. So the city staff that go through these programs will actually get certification from Thunderbird. So hopefully it goes to to their professional development. It gets them excited, it gets them wanting to participate. Our goal here is to create the public sector workforce of the future right here in the greater Phoenix region. So that way if industry is looking out and saying, what region should we go to? Oh, we need to go to the greater Phoenix region because they've got the most knowledgeable, most experienced, most intelligent public sector workforce when it comes to technology. So we're really excited about those programs. And even for the cities, a lot of the problems we heard is that the economy's great, we can't hire fast enough. We can't hire fast enough, we can't find talent to keep up with the pace that the city is moving. And so through the consortium, through the convenience or convergence of the university, the community college system, and all the cities, it's going to provide the kind of one direct pipeline into the most innovative initiatives and the most innovative students. And so one of the first programs that we're adopting as a smart region is the ASU Innovation Open. So this is a hard tech competition, specifically around the smart city space. This competition has been in process for, I believe, the last 3 or 4 years. And they have students, it's hosted by ASU, but they have students from MIT, Stanford, Yale competing in this. And so you have the best of students competing in this program on a yearly basis. Our goal here is to now bring bigger exposure to this competition, provide intimate access to not only for our cities, but for our industry partners to access and engage with these students competing in this program. Our goal is we can sink our teeth into them, bring them here, have them build families, build businesses, so that way we can grow kind of our talent pipeline into the greater Phoenix region. So unfortunately Bowman, she's in Europe talking about the Smart Region Consortium right now, so she couldn't be here, but I just want to reiterate the fact of this movement that is occurring. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of slides, but ASU, the #1 largest public research institution, #1 most innovative university for 4 years, I think it is, running now, they have completely changed the way they do business to fit into this idea of a smart region, smart city initiative. So if you see that date, 2019, they just created a whole new initiative internally to help support this effort. So it's pretty amazing to see an organization of that caliber completely change the way they do business because they believe that there's an incredible impact to be made here, and they have an incredible role to play. And so, as you can see through these slides, and I apologize, I'm not the most intelligent on them since I'm not directly working for ASU, but their whole goal is what they're calling smart campus, smart city, smart region. So they want to help provide the living lab, the incubation process for technologies and solutions to be developed on their campus, scaled out to a city, and then scaled out to the broader region. And so they're really interested in making an impact on their communities. And some of the work streams, again, I love it because ASU has bought in right away to this idea of a do tank. Let's not create, committees to talk about things. Let's create work streams. And so here's some of the major initiatives that they're looking at, and looking at ways to then drive this adoption into the communities, into the broader region. And a big announcement that they made last fall at our Smart Region Summit was AWS made a $3 million commitment to build one of their, I think, 5 cloud innovation centers right here in the greater Phoenix region because of what we're building. So it's a resource to not only cities but industry as well that are having issues with data or looking at projects with data. They're able to access this cloud innovation center to help them rapidly prototype solutions to those challenges. So that investment was pretty exciting as well. And here's some contact information if you're all interested. Bowman is on the research side, as I mentioned, she's in Europe speaking right now, but she sits on the research, so she represents the research portfolio for ASU, while Chris Richardson, the deputy CIO, sits on the kind of campus side of things. So Chris is more focused on actually deploying technology, physically deploying technology on their campuses, while Di is accessing to the research community as well. And so, what we're really trying to do, it's a big vision. We created this about a year ago and really started to try to drive it. Our hopes was we could, do our best Kevin Costner, and if you build it, they will come, feel the dream, so to speak. And so just by speaking about this vision, really trying to tell people about the passion and the great communities that we have here, like Chandler, and what you're doing, especially in the AV space, we hope that we could inspire companies, industry, to start to relocate their investments into our region. And so we're excited to say that's already happening. I mean, as I mentioned, the AWS Cloud Innovation Center decided to relocate here or to build here last year. Deloitte opened a delivery center. I think one of their 2 or 3 in the country, but that one's specifically focused on smart city and emerging technologies. And then we've also won a couple of big grants to help drive smart cities forward and smart regions forward here. And I'm excited to announce that come November at our Smart Region Summit, we have a handful of big announcements along the lines of AWS that we will be making. And so again, it's an exciting time. There's a great movement. And I'm tremendously excited to announce the fact that, you know, as we're building out this summit, we reached out to the great people here at Chandler and the Chandler Chamber of Commerce. And there's actually, you're all going to be hosting an AV symposium during that time. And just from us starting to communicate the idea of, hey, would it be interesting to have an AV symposium during these 3 days? We were flocked with industry partners, with people saying yes, researchers, other cities saying we would love to attend, we would love to go. So we're excited to have the City of Chandler and the Chandler Chamber of Commerce to play a leading spotlight role in these 3 days. We're going to have people from all over the country and all over the world. I think people from Dubai, even Berlin are going to be coming and attending this 3-day summit. And so we're excited to put that spotlight on Chandler. And we're only able to do so because of all your leadership and the great leadership from the mayor, the city council, and the city management and staff. So I want to thank you for your leadership. You guys have been tremendous in helping us drive this forward. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. I'll just leave this up here as kind of the overview of industry benefits. But I know I speak fast. I'm Italian. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. But I'd love to open it up to questions, comments, or anything you might have to want to grill me on. I'll stay on this side.
All right. Thank you, Dominic. We have had the pleasure, and Dominic, thank you for reaching out to us, because we had our group of business leaders that had been meeting on a regular basis. And actually, where is Desma? There you are. And we've had that group with the autonomous vehicles that had been meeting, and so I really appreciate. And I will tell you, when you see the lineup of speakers that we have, I think I impressed you.
Yeah,
Good.
I go to national conferences. I don't have as many good speakers or quality speakers that they're going to have here. So.
I'm very excited. So it'll be from 7:30 till about 3:30. So mark that date on your calendar, and then we'll be opening up registration soon. So questions?
Thank you. This is really interesting. And it's great to see ASU jumping into this really heavily. My question is that how do we draw in, say, the community colleges, and particularly the local school districts, because most of the people that will be part of the workforce development effort are now in grade school and junior high school and high school. The school districts seem to be far more focused on social issues rather than, reading and math proficiency and job skills training. How important is that to your effort? Because if you don't have the people to drive this, it's not going anywhere.
100%, you hit the nail on the head. And what I'm excited is that the Community College District has come on as a formal partner of the consortium, because we believe that workforce development has to be at the front instead of the back, right? Typically it's at the back, we think about it last, right? But now, because of the leadership at the community college with Darcy and Susan that used to be there, Mark, their CIO, they're actively involved in participating in this process. So how do we start to train that workforce of the future right from the very beginning, and how do we get them engaged? What's exciting about these opportunities is the fact that their campuses, they're spread out all across the region. They can be living labs for these technologies as well. So we're already starting to talk about projects where these students can start to earn curriculum or credits in these technologies and actually have applied projects with the cities or on campuses, right? Think about a student that is actually trying to develop an app to a real world problem, right? The cities, the universities, they're pushing out these problems, right? And we need people to try to solve them, right? So think about an app development class or core curriculum at these community colleges where students are actually working on their skills of developing, coding these apps, but they're actually working on a real world problem, right? That's exciting. They're not just working on something that's theoretical, they're working on a real world problem, and potentially if it's good enough, if they solve that real world problem, then there's potentially maybe a customer at the back end, right? Because you're solving a challenge that needs to be met. So we're excited to really have the community college districts on board as a dedicated partner from the very beginning. With the K through 12, we are looking to engage them more more heavily, especially because we're seeing a lot of these technologies revolve around public safety. And so we're talking about how do we create smart and safe schools, and so we really want to try to engage them a little bit more than we have, because we want to provide not only the resources to help them create smart, connected, and safe schools, but also, to your point, of developing those children into potentially the next tech talent. So we're actually having interesting conversations, and I mean, this is just rough, but think about, you usually go through foreign language class, right? Having digital literacy become almost as a foreign language, right, from the very beginning. So that way, you see people or organizations like the UN trying to hit 100% literacy levels. And now we're starting to say, well, digital literacy needs to be included in that conversation from the very beginning. So we're actually in the preliminary conversations of how do we inject digital literacy as part of the core curriculum, just like a foreign language would be.
The other thing, Kurt, through our foundation, we're probably about 6 months out, but we have developing a program, an app that will help match mentors with students, and to be able to help that, whether it's through an internship or apprenticeship or so forth. And that's also through our Workforce and Education Coalition, and I know Carly's in the back of the room, we're working on some of that too. So we're taking a lead on that as well. So time for one more question.
Definitely agree with the project-based learning and the tech credentials. We definitely do have to bring the digital literacy into our schools, into our world, absolutely. With the digital literacy though, with privacy, security, and everything like that, we also need to bring a sense of digital trust too. And one of the things that I would definitely like to, I don't know if it's a one-off, because it might be, discuss the government and blockchain and digital trust and a lot of other things, and maybe working with your organization.
Yeah, that's great. And just what we're excited about is now this provides us with the process to have those conversations, right? Instead of 22 cities having to struggle with digital privacy, digital governance, right? Those are very tough situations. We can now have a process, a mechanism to bring those conversations to a fore, right, and actually talk about this together, right? Because if we can develop, regional policies, especially in these data governance, data transparency, you name it, we're going to build trust right into the community, and that's again why we are setting ourselves apart from other areas that are kind of trying this, like Google up in Toronto with Sidewalk Labs. Like we've seen a big pushback from the community, right, because it's Google running up there, and they're like, well, what are they really doing with all this data? Well, how are they, what are they actually, we have a nonprofit sitting at the middle of this effort, right? And our goal is to bring the community in early, often, and as much as possible. We're here to speak for the community. And so this process is going to be completely transparent. We see it again as this perfect mechanism to drive these conversations at what we really need is region level, because you would hate to have 22 different policies. For industry, it's not good. For citizens, it's not good, because you never know what policy you're entering when you cross a municipal boundary. So if we can help the governments, kind of create these policies and programs together, I think that's kind of our goal here. And we actually see it as, again, driving back to economic development. Think about it from a large industry provider's perspective. If we are able to come up with agreeable digital privacy agreement for the region, and then a big industry partner comes in and tries to say, hey, no, you're going to take my policy, my data privacy policy, because we're big, we're billions of dollars a company. Usually for cities, that's hard. Like, it's like, well, we want to partner with you, but we're just one city. What are we going to do? No, when you have 22 cities say, no, you're going to actually follow our policy, then we regain power a little bit, right? And so we can drive it.
One other quick thing. What about partnering with other nonprofits that are already in partnership with ASU and stuff like that? I'm on the board for College Bound AZ, and I know they raise a lot of money in order to really break down that barrier between going to college and high school. They actually bring high school students and put them into the college classroom for that workforce development.
Yeah, our goal is to kind of what we like to call it, break down silos and build up partnerships. So that's our whole goal. I always think it's funny when we first built this. When we were going through the process and we got the 22 cities and towns in the county to kind of say, yeah, this idea about a smart region makes sense, we then went to ASU because, believe it or not, I love them. I have my master's and I'm in law school there, but they're almost just as disorganized, as anyone. I would laugh because, a big grant would come out and I would get 10 emails from 10 different professors saying, hey, do you want to partner with me on this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to, but are you guys talking to each other?
The left's not talking to the
We
right.
have no idea who those people are, right? And so that's when we went to them and said, hey, hey Michael Crow, hey Lev, why don't you create a center for smart cities and regions that can be the one direct pipeline in for all tech-related smart city opportunities. They thought this was a great idea. Again, their organization is changing to fit this. They built that center and they've actually funded it with $1 million a year to go out and launch projects. So again, you're seeing this great synergy, this great connections, and so we're getting there.
In listening to Dominic's presentation, one of the things that stands out to me with this Smart City Consortium is the potential for the reduction in risk associated with project development. The ability to avoid a $1 million, a $20 million, a $50 million mistake or going down the wrong path is just absolutely huge. So I want to thank Dominic again for helping us out today on this topic. Second thing I'd like to do, on your table, you'll find this sheet. Put your hands on it. I want to do a shout out for our public policy group. Terry and Brian Fox, the interns, the staff here at the chamber, do an awesome job at putting together a public policy program for the chamber. And your participation is really important in this process. As you'll see, we operate on issues at the local, the state, the federal level. These guys are putting together programming, including the policy impact series, how we stand legislative agenda, and good government. Take a look at what they do. Your participation is absolutely critical to making sure that we get the right proposals in front of the right folks as it relates to promoting our businesses at Chandler. So thank you very much for your participation. Next, I'd like to ask Will to introduce our next speaker. Will?
Jim Bishop first moved to Chandler in 1991 to fly jets at Williams Air Force Base after graduating from the Air Force Academy. He spent 9 years in the Air Force and then moved back to Chandler. He's the proud father of 2 college students who both attended C.U.S.D. schools from kindergarten through high school. As a former chairman and current member of Yes for Chandler students, he continues to advocate and fight for public education. One of his favorite sayings is, "There is a better person inside all of us," and he believes education is the key to discovering that better person. Please welcome Jim Bishop.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Bishop. I'm with Yes for Chandler students. I'm here to talk about the school bond for the Chandler Unified School District. I want to be very clear, I'm not a district employee. I'm a parent volunteer. As Will mentioned, I have 2 children who are in college right now. Both of them did attend Chandler schools from kindergarten through high school. I volunteered pretty much every step of the way with them. I started as a classroom volunteer, and I still volunteer at the district. Now it's mainly at the coaching level. I coach long distance, track, cross country, and conditioned wrestlers. Today I have 3 main goals for you. Number 1, I want to explain what a bond is and explain some of the specialties about this bond for the Chandler district. Number 2, and the heart of the briefing, I want to tell you why you should vote yes for the bond, ultimately support the bond, and respectfully ask the chamber as a body to endorse the bond. And third and finally, I do want to open up any questions. I promise not to leave here today until I answer all your questions. Now for the question session, I do have Lana Berry with me. She is the CFO for the district. So if your questions exceed my expertise on the finances of the district, I'm going to kind of tap out and use my phone a friend with Lana here. So let's get started. What is a bond? Bonds are fairly straightforward and easy to understand. When you think bond, think the B in bond stands for big. Bonds stand for buildings and buses. It is the brick and mortar of education. Bond money pays for all new construction and all renovation of existing construction or renovation of existing facilities for the district. It also will help pay for technology and safety improvements. Now this bond is $295 million. Like all bonds, the money is raised through a tax levy on property taxes. Now where did this bond come from? It is important to note that the district is very transparent with their finances. Every January, they have the Citizens Budget Committee. Citizens from the committee, or from the community, are asked to join them, where the district opens up their books, goes every line of their finances, and ask for input from the community. Periodically, when the needs of the district exceed the yearly budget, they're asked to consider a bond. So the district presents different bond amounts, how that affects the tax rates, and then asks the citizens to vote on it, which they did. They present their finding to the school board. Ultimately, the school board is the final authority. And on June 12th this year, the school board voted unanimously to recommend a $295 million bond to be presented to the C.U.S.D. residents on the November 5th ballot by mail-in ballot only. So that's the highlights of the bond. Bond for building, brick and mortar, so buildings and buses, $295 million, mail-in only ballot on November 5th. Now for the real question. Why should you vote yes for this bond? Let's ask ourselves first, what will this bond give to us? What will it do for us? And there's three things I do want to talk about real quick. Number one, classroom size. 2, school choice. And 3, upgraded technology and school safety. School size is near and dear to all of us. Obviously, we want smaller classrooms. Chandler is projected to grow at a rate of 300 students per year over the next 10 years. So obviously, if you don't continue to build new classrooms, your classroom size is going to go up. School choice. Chandler Unified has done a brilliant job of not just presenting a one-size-fits-all approach to education. They have a myriad of programs. They realize that children are unique. So no matter what your child's unique skills, abilities, or needs are, Chandler Unified has a program for that child. Bond money will help renovate, help change existing schools into new programs, therefore presenting new programs to schools. So school choice will grow under this bond. And third and finally, obviously, school safety and safety is always on all our minds. Bond money can be used to upgrade our technology and ensure that our children have safe classrooms with the latest technology. Okay, why do you need $295 million to do this? First, we need to look at just the reality of education financing here in Arizona. Based on, no matter what chart you look at, Arizona usually ranks anywhere from 48th to 50th in the nation in education funding. And let's look at what that means for Chandler. Chandler has 5 million square feet of building space, valued at $850 million. Now there's a rule of thumb in commercial real estate that your budget should be approximately 5% of what your assets are per year for maintenance and facilities. 5% of $850 million is $42.5 million. This year, the state budget for facility support is $15 million. Obviously, $15 million is roughly 1/3 of $42.5 million. There is some good news there. When I was here 4 years ago talking about that bond, that number was $3 million from the state for facility support. The year before, it was $2 million. During the drastic education cuts that took place after the Great Recession, the main cuts went to facility supports. So the trend is upward. We're up to $15 million, but still not back to where we need to be. If you go back to 2007, and keep in mind, even back then, Arizona was still in the bottom 20% of education funding. Based on the formula that the state used back then, Chandler should be receiving approximately $30 million per year for facility support. Once again, 15 is still half of that number. So that's where that need is. Now, I talked about kind of some big numbers. 15 million, 5 million square feet of building space, and $850 million of property assets. Sometimes that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. So let's break that down into something that we can all think about, just an average home. So basically, Chandler Unified has the equivalent of 2,500 homes, measuring 2,000 square feet. And for each of these homes, they're given $6,000 to manage all the facility, maintenance, upkeep of that home. Now that $6,000 per year isn't just for your average maintenance upkeep, it also involves transportation, because once again, buses. So that $6,000 needs to cover your transportations. 60% of these homes, in this analogy, are 20 years old. So obviously, as someone who owns a 15-year-old home can tell you, as a home hits 10, 12 years, those maintenance costs go up. One air conditioning unit goes out and your $6,000 is taken up right there. And as I explain this analogy, probably most of you are thinking, okay, an average home, 2.3 kids. Based on this analogy, each of these homes has 18 children living in it. 18 children sharing 1.5 bathrooms. 18 children sharing the 1.5 bathrooms, using the same floor, the same carpet, day and day, obviously the full age range of kids. So you can imagine that these homes will need some repair on them. So $6,000 does not cover the cost to upkeep that. Now, obviously, before I would ask you to vote yes on the district, I would ask you, well, you should ask me, well, has the district been a good investment in the past? Does it continue to produce a great product? And the answer there is clearly yes. The district is thriving. I could spend the majority of today's presentation talking about the many ways the district is succeeding. I want to just highlight a couple of my few favorite successes. Last year, the New York Times ranked public school districts in the category of student growth, which is the ultimate measure of education. How does a student grow in your district? Chandler Unified was ranked #1 in the nation, the #1 public school district in the nation for academic growth. Just yesterday, Chandler Unified received the #1 ranking for school districts in the city of Phoenix. Chandler graduates earned $150 million in scholarship offers last year. That's roughly $50,000 per graduate. Chandler Unified Schools are thriving. As I mentioned, Chandler provides a product, an education opportunity for everybody. No matter what your needs, what your abilities, what your skills are, there is an education program at Chandler that meets that child's needs. Now, a lot of these things I've talked about, the classroom size, school choice, the upgraded safety, or upgraded technology and safety, and the great accolades of the district, that's plays well to those of us who have children. But what about those of us who are empty nesters? What do we tell those people who don't have children in the district any longer? What I tell you is when you invest in education, you're investing in the community. It's all tied together. Chandler Unified is an important part of this community. When we invest in our schools, we tell the world that we're open for business. When we're trying to increase our technology here in the city, strong schools will help draw new business in. Ask the mayor, anytime we're trying to get a business to come here, one of the main draws is how are your schools? Ask any realtor. Whenever anyone's looking into buying a home in the city, they're going to ask that realtor, how are your schools there? That's a very easy question to answer. When you invest in our schools, you invest in our community. The whole community grows. We see it in increased business coming our way and increased property values. So before I open up to questions, I want to thank the Chandler Chamber very much for putting us onto this busy agenda Friday. We do appreciate the opportunity to present it. So please join me, vote yes this November on this school bond, and ultimately, I respectfully ask the governing board of the Chamber to endorse this campaign. Thank you. Be happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions?
Thank you so much. Hello? Okay. With the safety and education and being proactive, one of the things that I wanted to address, or maybe kind of ask your opinion on, where you foresee the school district going with mental health and difficult subjects such as domestic violence and suicide prevention and self-harm, which is, very huge, substance abuse, things like that. Are any of those funds going to go towards making sure that there's more mental health in our children's schools?
And that's an excellent question. Obviously, those are very important issues to the district. And so for bond, when I speak of the bond, the truth is it's bonds for that big stuff. It's for the brick and mortar, it's for the buildings. The vast majority goes towards construction projects and towards the building of new schools. So as far as programs like that, so the truth is a bond, when they receive money, bond money has to be spent this way. But the district has only so much money to spend. By receiving construction money, you're going to free up other money that can be go towards new programs. And obviously, mental health issues will always be near and dear to the district because they offer the full range of programs.
I love the Chandler School District. I have a son who had to be moved to a different school because of behavioral issues, and this is where my questions come in, is that I still don't see enough cohesion with the schools and the parents when it comes to mental health issues. So, that's it.
Appreciate the question. Lana, do you have anything to add to any new mental health programs? I don't want to...
Jump in really quick. Great question. Actually, there is a lot of need for that. We have one of our legislators in the House, Jennifer Pollock, and some of the members funded through the governor, with the governor's support, for mental health, additional money for counselors and for safety officers. And so the school district will be applying for those grants. One of the things our superintendent just did was add a social worker to each of our high schools. That's not specifically funded, but we use some of our growth money that we've had come in to support that. And we know there's a huge need for it. Last year, for the first time, we had a director of support services related to suicide prevention, Brenda Ramos. I think she's been able to come speak a little bit. She has been heading that up, a lot of suicide prevention support and help in our schools. We know that's important. So yes, we have a huge need for it. Unfortunately, being 48th funded in the nation, there's not a ton of money. But it is important. Chandler has been very successful in passing elections, and we have an override that has been passed in the past, which helps support programs and salaries, and bonds help us support our facilities, the BP that Jim is talking about. And without that, we would have to use our operating costs, which are for salaries and benefits, to support our buildings. And so bonds help us to keep that money where it needs to be with our facilities, so that we can use our operating costs to really meet the needs and the programs of our students. But still have a huge need, still working on that. Definitely want more connections with our students and our families, and definitely room for growth in that area, and we'll continue to work on it. Thank you. You're welcome.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity.
And on your tables, you'll find a handout here from prepared by the C.U.S.D. in regards to facts related to their bond proposal. So you're free to take that and refer to it on a go-forward basis. Now, something we like to do here at the Chamber is gather the input from our members in regards to a proposal such as the C.U.S.D. bond proposal. And the way we do that is through a vote of our membership. So what we'd like to do is actually have a vote today in regards to the bond proposal. The way it works is we take a vote today in support or against. A motion is made, we take a vote in support or against, and then that recommendation is brought forward to the Chandler Chamber Board for consideration in their final decision on whether or not to support the bond proposal or not. So with that, I'd like to open the floor to see if there are any motions. First?
I'll second that.
And a second. Okay, so again, let me reiterate, the vote is open only to chamber members. So if you're not a chamber member, please do not raise your hand. We'll operate via a show of hands. All those in support of the C.U.S.D. bond proposal, please raise your hand. And hold them up, we'll get a count. Thank you. All those voting against the C.U.S.D. bond proposal, please raise your hand. Get that against count? So what's our count?
22-4, 0 against.
22-4 and 0 against. Okay, well, Jim, thank you very much for a great presentation. Next, I'd like to introduce Jason, who will introduce our next speaker.
All right, good morning. In the interest of time, we'll have both speakers work in tandem. We'll have Mayor Kevin Hartke. He and his wife Lynn have been married for 38 years and have lived in Chandler since 1985. He began his term in January 2019 and previously served on the City Council for 9 years. Also, Chandler City Manager Marcia was appointed to City Manager in April 2016 and oversees the day-to-day operations of Chandler. She hails from Lubbock, Texas, where she served for 20 years in a variety of public works positions. Please welcome Mayor Kevin Hartke.
Well, good morning. Am I on? Sounds like it. It's good to be here again. And so I'm going to be presenting in tandem with our city manager, Marcia Reed, but What I'm going to be presenting is not just my presentation. This is a pretty considerable body of work that represents our city council and our staff. And with our city council, we've got several of our council members. I see Vice Mayor Rowe, I see Council Member McClymans, Council Member Orlando. So really what I'm talking about is a presentation that are hearing from the community what it represents. Going the wrong way? Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. All right. So at your tables, you have a copy of this strategic framework. I'm not going to insult you by reading it line by line. Please take this home. This is a document that we believe that will provide a framework over the next several years in talking about the direction that we think Chandler should be going, again, in consultation with our community and with many of you. This outlines our vision and as well as goals and focus. This is something that will be before us very often because we believe that it's not just a document to be brought out here and then sit on a table somewhere, but we'll be working intimately with our staff to make sure that we're adding to this framework and seeing it complete through the years. So, a lot of goals in here, and I'm going to be going through the 5 of these particular goals, but there's a lot more, as I mentioned, in this. We started working on this probably about 10 months ago to set up a sit-down with our city, with our council, to take the input that we've received from the community and to actually articulate what are the directions and the goals that we need to be focusing on current council, current staff, as well as, again, to provide a framework for future council and future staff. So I'm going to go over the 5 main goals of this particular document. Number 1 is infill and redevelopment. As you can imagine, a city like Chandler, which we're bound by other entities, we're approaching build out and getting closer every year. So we have infill projects that are no longer the large swaths of price corridor or large housing tracts, but we do have a lot of small pockets in which we continue to see office developments coming in, see housing tracts. Chandler is a very desirable community, as you can imagine, with all of the workforce that is and jobs that are available here. People want to live close to where they can work if they have that opportunity. So we continue to look at infill and redevelopment as a very strategic part of what we do. We wanted to continue to attract destination mixed-use projects and unique amenities for our community that serves not just the needs of our community today, but in the future. We're also looking to see how can we repurpose vacant retail in our community. Certainly you've seen that in North Chandler and in other areas that are older. This area around downtown Chandler has experienced a lot of revitalization, and I think this year alone there's between over the last couple months and continuing, we're going to see 12 new restaurants coming into our downtown area that are very attractive and bring people to us. Another area is innovation and technology. Certainly we love our relationship with Waymo, but that doesn't describe all of it. Chandler is a sophisticated community with a lot of high-tech companies that are in the AV space, but also in a lot of other areas in terms of smart city initiatives. So we see ourselves not only as a partner with Dom, but as a testing ground for new technologies and an opportunity to continue to invest in infrastructure to drive future technology advancements. This is not for the purpose of smart city for smart city basis. We like to monetize these and see, is there an actual gain, whether it's efficiencies or increasing the quality of life for our residents, our businesses, and our visitors. Another area that's part of our strategic framework is mobility. We're not just interested in allowing people to get around Chandler, but how does Chandler and Chandler residents and those who work in Chandler get in and out of our community? And to that purpose, we're currently undergoing a transportation study. We're currently just initiating, we kicked off at our council this last week, an airport study. How can we better utilize our Chandler Airport? How can we look at future and emerging technologies that will use our our existing streets, whether it's platooning vehicles that serve as a light rail without rail capability, or other types of things that we see that will help Chandler and help our residents get in and around our community. We're also looking to see how can we use our open spaces and multi-use paths to connect development and neighborhoods. Even such things as if you've noticed, there's been a moratorium on skateboards and bicycles, the rented things in Chandler, because we're conducting a study with that. And kudos to them for respecting our study rather than just flooding our streets. So we're working with them to see how can we best serve all of our community with these future and emerging technology neighborhoods. Chandler is committed to creating unique and vibrant neighborhoods through providing service and amenities, through working with local and regional partners on neighborhood improvement programs, offering innovative housing options, and maintaining and enhancing our infrastructure. And a good part of that is continuing to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe, which leads us into quality of life. We boast being one of the safest communities in the United States, and that's not something we take lightly. It's been a result of continued investment, having the right size amount of police, having continued technology investments into our public safety folks, and we want to continue to build and enhance destination parks, open spaces, while reimagining public spaces to be used year-round in our community. We continue to incorporate high standards into our architecture, our art, and our landscaping to make sure that Chandler is a city that people are proud to live in and proud to invest in. So we look forward to continuing to work with all of you to reach Chandler's vision. We will continue to work with our city to keep our feet and our accountability and our city manager and our staff's accountability to the fire to make sure that we're putting together this strategic framework. And I wanted to keep this section short, and I now want to invite up City Manager Marcia Reed.
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you. Well, good morning. I am also going to be relatively brief, but wanted to take an opportunity to talk a bit about the one-year plan of the Mayor and City Council. Mayor mentioned that what they're looking at and what's been recently adopted, a 3 to 5 year strategic look and goals and strategies of where we're headed. But that one-year document is the official document that the Mayor and Council approved that is required by state charter and everything else. So as part of that, before I get started, I just wanted to see who would take a guess at how many programs that the City of Chandler offers. Do I have a guess? Thousands? No real guess? No real guess? All right. So we actually offer 445 programs through the city. And as part of this, as you can imagine how diverse that we are, we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We do not sleep. We have, if you think about, and that is the case many times, right, Matt? Matt and I are talking at 2 in the morning. Anyway, this is what we do. But if you think about your business and then think about the city, a little bit different in terms of things that we provide, because if you think about, we issue guns, we put out fires, we take care of homeless, we provide recreation, we provide entertainment, we take care of providing books for your children to check out at libraries, we actually take care of your children in summer camps. We do a lot of different things from one end of the spectrum to the other, including providing water, wastewater, and all of that for the citizens and businesses of Chandler. Just to look at Chandler at a glance, we have 65 square miles. Our population as of the first of this month, 261,500. We have 2,087 miles of streets, and I always like to put that in perspective. So if you think about how many miles of streets that is, think about a 2-lane highway from here to Dallas, Texas. That's what we maintain in streets. So if you think about that, that's a lot. Over almost 28,000 streetlights, 244 signalized intersections, 1,215 miles of potable water. That's here to Lincoln, Nebraska, just checking. 933 miles of sanitary sewer, Oklahoma City. Yeah. That's how many miles. 31 wells, 67 parks, and if you think about that, that's 3 square miles almost of just pure developed parks, 45 lighted fields, 50 municipal buildings, and we have 781 fleet of just vehicles and trucks. That does not include any of our heavy equipment or any of those things. So in the budget process, obviously we start developing the budget. We've already started on next year's. We started that about 2 weeks ago. And so talk is already going. We'll be working on our citizen input piece, the budget survey, and how we're going to move through the budget process going into the next fiscal year. And then we get mayor and council direction. So mayor and I had some discussion about when we're going to have our budget kickoff with the council, likely in December. And then we follow that with several of the things that I'll just let you read there, and I won't read them for you. The current fiscal year budget, $927 million. And just some highlights here, we did roll back the property tax rate from 1.1386 to 1.1281 per $100 assessed value. No increases in sales tax. There were planned increases for water, wastewater, and our reclaimed water funds, but we were able, thanks to our wonderful staff, to get to a point those were not necessary, but we do have a 6% solid waste increase. The budget maintains or enhances service levels, no cuts in services, allocating one-time funding to pay down PSPRS, which I'm going to talk about that in just a second. That's our public safety personnel retirement system. And then we have added many millions to our CIP funding to maintain aging infrastructure, and I'll also talk about that in just a second. Chandler, much like some cities, but not all, we maintain AAA bond ratings from all 3 rating agencies. You may hear cities talk about AAA from 2 rating agencies, but we have it from all 3. As of the 1st of this month, that number is up to 41 in the U.S., and so we are one of those 41. We are structurally balanced, and we use that term a lot, but what does that mean? That means we use one-time dollars for one-time expense and ongoing dollars for ongoing expenses. I will tell you, not every city does that. So that makes us stand out and appreciate the City Council's financial policies that have been adopted for many years, and then we continue to build upon that. We have strong reserves. We've got a 15% general fund contingency reserve built into the budget and a $10 million budget stabilization reserve. And what that's for is for the unknowns of this year. So if something were to happen, we have $10 million set aside that we can continue to operate in case of our revenues not coming in as projected. And then we maintain our expenditure growth, and we look at that every year. Dawn Lang, our CFO, and her team really work hard on all of that. We have 68 separate funds. These are our buckets, as I talked to Councilmember Stewart about. He's not here, so I'll say that. Anyway, but these are our buckets, but these are 68 different businesses, basically, that we run. The biggest one being our general fund. Obviously, we have 2 debt service funds, 6 enterprise funds, 6 internal service funds that are self-insurance, workers' comp, those kind of things. 18 special revenue funds, and 35 capital project funds that we operate. Just to take a quick glance at this, and this will be on the sheet that's on your table, I'll talk about in a second. But if you look at our revenue and where it comes from, if you'll notice that 34%, that biggest piece, that is actually carry forward fund balances. It's not new money, it is money that's being carried forward. And then you can see here, most of ours comes from local sales tax or state shared revenue or our utility billing. So through if you get water, wastewater, and solid waste, we bill you for that, and that makes up about 15% of those funds. Where does the money go? If you'll notice, the biggest piece, 36% of that, is going to major capital projects. So no different than the school. We have many capital projects that we need to intake or do over the next year. And so if you look at that, that's the biggest piece of it. Our Public Works Department is our biggest expenditure, and then followed by police in terms of just department expenses. But it gives you just a highlight of where those go. For this year's budget, and I know there was discussion with this group a couple of months ago about the budget going up 6%. Yes, it did. But if you want to break that down, what does that look like? So if you look at the major drivers, our operations, department operations obviously drive our budget, but the public safety retirement system. So right now, the city, as of the end of last June, we we owe $172.5 million in unfunded liability with the public safety personnel retirement system. I want to truly emphasize that this is nothing that the city council has any stake in, say in, or anything like that. But it is the funds that we pay into for our public safety personnel, and it's very important for their futures. That fund and the retirement system is actually governed by a board appointed by the governor. And so it is our biggest debt in the city of Chandler, and the council has been very much supportive of taking forward and making extra payments to help pay down that unfunded liability. And so this year's budget included not only the 20.5 additional one-time in public safety retirement system, but there's another 5 already that we've been doing. So we are actually sending $25 million in one-time funds to the PSPRS to help pay that down over the course of the next 8 or 9 years. But if you take all of that out, our budget actually went up very minimally. But if you just take out that one extra payment, it only went up about 2% instead of 6%. So just want to kind of explain that. And then we have a big increase for one-time dollars for maintenance or enhanced services. Most of this is going to capital or maintenance of our park, streets, and those things I talked about earlier. That capital budget did go up 5.6%. $5.5 million of that was carry forward dollars for projects such as the parking garage across the street over here off of Arizona. It's not quite finished, so we've got to carry those funds forward in order to continue to pay and complete a project. 1,500 employees with this budget, but we are sitting at 6.5. As the mayor likes to say, we're the lowest city. But Gilbert last year was 5.6, and so they're gaining fast on us. So anyway, we're looking forward to them passing us soon. The other thing is just the overall cost of service for you, the taxpayers. What does that look like? So actually the city of Tempe puts together a study every year that looks at all the cities across the valley that we compare to and where do we rank. We had thought that we would be the lowest this year coming out, but due to things beyond our control, although good for us, the median single-family home in Chandler actually went up enough that we're still $46 above Gilbert. So anyway, but we still, as you can see, if you're in Gilbert or Chandler, you're doing really well if you look at the rest of the valley. Coming soon, as in next week, based on what the mayor was talking about, and our council has approved the strategic plan, but also our brand is changing. And so Matt Burdick sitting in the back up there and our CAPA team have really been working on through the city council in terms of changing our brand. We're going to be rolling out a new logo, which you see right here before you. You may have seen it already. It's inching its way out. But we're keeping our mark of the city of Chandler, that we are known for that, and it will remain the same. But the old values make a difference is going away. That's when we're going to turn internal focus, and we are going to be the community of innovation. That is our new tagline. And you can see our new brand, a safe community that connects people, chooses innovation, and inspires excellence. And this came from working with citizens and businesses in the community, working with a committee that Matt had put together, and then obviously our mayor and council had a couple of looks at this before it was official and they voted on it. So look forward to that next week. Also next week we'll be rolling out a new marketing video. I've seen the preview, it's really awesome. Anyway, and so we'll be rolling that out, as well as many of the innovative stories that we do as a city, and we're going to be asking for your innovative stories. So look for that and be part of that through our social media. Really appreciate that. And with that, I know the mayor will be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Oh, come on, this group is never this quiet. I do have one. Marcia, you know that water, public infrastructure, that's the largest, one of the largest areas that we have to maintain. And that, of course, is near and dear to my heart. Can you talk about, because not all of our surrounding communities have the extensive water system that we have here in Chandler, and I don't think the general public knows that. So I, of course, and many of you who know my story knows that my daughter and son-in-law live in Flint, Michigan, and I have a grandson who, when my daughter was pregnant, both my daughter and grandson had very high amounts of lead in their system. And I have a grandson who was born with one hand. So water is really, really important to me, and you will never hear me. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that that's very important.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So with our water system, unlike many of the cities, when I had the slide up there that said we operate many water wells in the city, we operate wells that actually put water in the ground, and then we are also able to pull water out of the ground. We are way ahead of other cities in terms of our water portfolio. With council approval, we actually did a recent purchase of water, another $40-something million, about $42 million in water resource. We haven't even tapped that yet, but that sets us apart from many of our cities who are out there really looking for water, and water is very expensive and only going up, as you can imagine. But as Terry mentioned, it's really the ability that we have to treat that water. No water leaves the city of Chandler. No water leaves our border. We don't send it anywhere. We take all that water that we run through our wastewater plants, it's pushed back into the ground, and then at some point when we need it, we can pull it out, and we do that annually actually, as our water treatment plant goes down for work every year when the SRP dry-up happens. So it is very important to our mayor, our councils of the past, but we are very much set on water and wastewater infrastructure, unlike many of our neighboring cities. So thanks.
Other questions? I know there wasn't a whole lot up on those slides on business, there was some, but other questions that you may have for the mayor or city manager? You're saving them all for coffee with the mayor, right? All right, thank you very much.
If they have any updates for our chamber members. So with that, we're very honored today to have quite a showing from our elected officials. We'd like to start with State Representative Jennifer Pollack, please.
Hello. I'm happy to be here with you today. Even though we're not in session with the legislature, there are interim committees happening. So I am proud to tell you that I'm serving on 3 committees for House Education. We are looking at school safety, school achievement, and school funding, especially relating to special education. Thank you.
And I will tell you, I know that Brian, that we meet with our representatives on a regular basis. In fact, we met this week, making sure that we're covering things so that we have that in our how we stand as well.
Mayor Hartke.
In terms of city updates, I'll let her, we also have, yes. Well, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, just 2 things that we are amazingly proud of our community, because again, the chamber, the city, when things great happen in our community, we just are so excited. One of our local folks, C.U.S.D, recently won their Desert Wave Girls Engineering team, came 3rd in the world in terms of a competition. I just, kudos to them, their Chandler School products. They work out of Gangplank. And then secondly, another one of our amazing businesses in Chandler, Peixoto, was recently voted 4th in the world in terms of coffee shops. So there's great things happening in Chandler, the synergy that we all love to see.
Super awesome.
Well, I've been a county supervisor now for 6 months, and it's really been kind of crazy. You know, we thought that we would have a sort of quiet summer, but it's been extremely busy. Probably the most important thing that we've been working on, and hopefully really made some significant progress on, is our election process. You know, it's been a mess for a number of years, and we spent an awful lot of time. And we've got a presidential preference election coming up in March, which will give us an opportunity to evaluate how good a job we've done. But at least right now, we as a Board of Supervisors and the county recorder feel that we've really made great progress in making it a transparent, fair, impartial system. So stay tuned, and hopefully that's going to all work out. You know, other than that, you know, other than having problems at animal shelters and with hepatitis in the jail system and a few things like that, it's been pretty quiet. The other thing we are doing that I'll mention here is, you know, at the Maricopa Association of Governments, we're working on doing an update for Proposition 400, which is the half-cent sales tax for transportation infrastructure. And my office is going around having meetings with all of the municipalities in my district to ensure that we have a really workable, intelligent plan put together as a part of that update. So, you know, if anybody has any inputs they'd like to make, you know how to get a hold of me, but we've already had several meetings and we're going to have a lot more. And, you know, my job is really to listen to all of you, to listen to everybody in my district. And, you know, one of the things that's really impacted me is I went from, as a council member in Chandler, you know, 260,000 constituents to over 800,000 now in District 1 in the county. So having a good time, but it's a continuing challenge. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Also, we will be having in this room, Supervisor Sellers will be giving an entire Maricopa County update on the 22nd, 26th, 7th. 27th.
Sooner or later. I have a question, okay, because I operate a business, Chinese restaurant. Okay, the restaurant is got factors like a lot of different things, like health department, fire department, you know, all kinds of departments. So we need to get a little contact on how to deal with different issues. Okay, I have a problem with you. A little bit, you know, I need to talk to you in private. Okay.
He's the man to take care of it.
Yeah, I know him for a long time. Jack's one of my buddies. Okay.
And you know how to get a hold of him.
Okay, all right.
Vice Mayor.
I always promise to keep it short, and I will. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Chamber. The Chamber does a lot of things for Chandler and Chandler, and this is one of the more important things that I see as a real value. You know, the state representatives and supervisors and mayors and business owners. And so I'm glad that we can come together and share and hear what's happening in our community and around the state and around the world. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Chamber.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Matt Orlando. A couple of things. Going back to our strategic plan, a plan is only good as implementation. And Marcia Reed and her staff has put together a dynamic team to be able to address each of those issues and how we will measure success. So over periodically, we'll be getting those updates on how we're measuring success. Because obviously, as you indicated earlier, it could be a nightmare if you don't have a plan and how to get there, action plan. So that's good news there. The second thing is next week, we'll, again, part of our planning process, part of our connecting with our partnerships, we're going to have a joint planning, city council and planning and zoning commission meeting with the staff to put together some of the ideas you heard up there for infill projects, and how do we go forward on our streets and maintenance. It's important that we connect with the P&Z side of the house in the business community. So you as business leaders, if you have any inputs for that, please let us know. Reach out to one of us here and the staff and let us know what your thoughts are as how we could connect and make Chandler a better place to live. Thank you.
I'll hold it here. Yesterday marked the 1-year anniversary of our Chandler Public Safety Training Facility, and to celebrate, we filmed a recent Focus on Chandler, which we released yesterday. We had the opportunity to go out and interview Police Chief Duggan and Fire Chief Twiggins. And they really brought me through the ringer. I got the opportunity to do the shooting simulation and the whole fire obstacle course. And I'm going to tell you, great appreciation for the best. Our city really offers the best, and there's a reason, because we have a top-notch facility to train them to be the best. And so take a moment, check out the video. You'll see me getting crushed. But it's a super amazing facility, and we're so lucky to have that type of facility in Chandler. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Happy Friday.
Thank you. We also want to, I know that you heard from Dragon Sam earlier. Dragon Sam is recently spearheading a brand new focus group here under the chamber, and he is our Director of Community Outreach with our Asian community. We recognize the importance that the Asian businesses have here in our community, and we're really pleased to have him leading those efforts, and he's brought many of them, so thank you for that.
Okay, I would thank you for the mayor, for all these council that reach out really to me on a one-on-one basis to get some in-depth understanding how I can bring the community to really to help grow the city. Okay, you are doing a very excellent extra job as a mayor, as a good friend. Okay, so a council member, met Orlando, I met him him one time. We got a lot of in-depth understanding. In fact, we're going to have a lot of meetings in Germany. My buddy, he's a great councilman and a very smart guy in finance, a lot of numbers, And Vice Mayor Jack Sellers, those are all great people. I met them on a regular basis. Get some lot of deep understanding how we can communicate with business group and community groups. So I'm looking forward to to get more deeper connections. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, you have a lot of information on your table. Reminder about the 80 Summit coming up, and also on that Smart Cities Summit coming up in November. Also, our next economic update is the state of the market, and we're concentrating on office and industrial. And we have some key executives from JLL, which is they're going to talk about from a Valley standpoint, as they're going to give us an update. We're also very pleased to announce at that same economic update that Intel will be releasing its latest numbers on their economic impact. And they just did a not only for Chandler, Arizona, but also for the nation. I know last time they released those numbers, they contributed 1.2% to the total nation's GDP, which is incredible. So we're going to hear from them and hear what's happening with that too. So turn it back over to our chair.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you to our elected officials. Our speakers were absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Everyone hang around and chat if you like. And with that, we'll call it a closed meeting. Thank you.